Hello again, Steve here, today to talk about justice. A little bit about justice, yes. Don't we all want that? Well, if we look up justice in an etymology dictionary, we'll find that it is most related to the word equity. Equity basically being equality, right? And don't we all have a kind of an innate sense of what equity is? I don't know about you anyway. Maybe if we're spoiled, it gets a little bit eroded, our sense of it. But I grew up in a big family, and we had a deep sense of equity there because of equality. Because, for example, in the winter when there wasn't much in the way of fruit anywhere, if Mom bought a bag of apples, we each got one. And if somebody got two, darn it, we knew there was some injustice going on because there was inequity. And I think this is something that we have to be very careful of, this word justice and the concept around justice when it comes to something called sophistry. Sophistry, you've heard of it, right? This is a fallacious argument especially designed to deceive. Deceive, right? Actually, I was listening to a video the other day. It was an interview by a guy named Lord Monckton from England. Where else would you have a guy named Lord, right? Actually, it's not his name, it's his title, Lord. Yeah, I was listening to the Lord speaking, and he was talking about how way back in ancient history, the Greeks, there were some very famous Greek philosophers such as Socrates, Aristotle, and whatnot. And I forget which one it was, but he went around trying to find all the greatest authoritarians, all the experts in the land, the biggest bullshitters, in other words, right? And what he found out is that most of them were sophists, and most of them used what he called, eventually what came to be called logical fallacies, and he categorized these things. And they came down through the Latin eventually, from the Greek to the Latin to the English. And these things, once we become aware, and of course we're always talking about improving the quality of our lives, right? If we don't want to be fed a lie of bullshit and fall for it, we have to be aware of sophistry, and we have to be aware of these logical fallacies that are constantly used within this sort of thing. And in terms of justice, what we're hearing a lot of these days is social justice. And I heard somebody make a good comment the other day, which was, why do we need an adjective in front of justice? Why not just justice? Right? He made the point that apparently here, close to where I live, there's a school board that has come out recently with something called eco-justice that the kids can get involved with. And it all has to do with how bad we are in destroying the ecology and so on, right? But I think it's important to be aware of adjectives, especially in sophistry, in relation to justice. We all want justice. We have an innate sense of it. Even justice systems try to parody it, and very often they are sophists within that as well. I think they parody it because it's an innate sense that we have. We know when we've been wrong, we've been hurt, and so on. But why don't we just call it justice? And justice has to do with each and every one of us, because that's how it was set up. If there's an injured party, right? It's pretty hard for a tree to speak for itself. In fact, it has to be on somebody's land for somebody to speak for it. So we cannot have eco-justice, right? We can't have social justice because there's no such thing as justice. There's only justice within the realm of men and women and children, us human beings, because the basis of any kind of justice is an injured party. If somebody has two when the allotment is only one, then he is taking from the others because it should have been divvied out amongst the others, if that's the original agreement, right? So that's a sense of injustice. We don't need to have these taglines, these adjectives put on our words. We have to be careful with it. Because of course, a lot of this sophistry, this veiled form of lying, is meant to get our sense of goodwill within us. We all want justice. So as soon as we hear a term that has an adjective and then justice, we think, oh, this must be about justice. But it may not be about justice. It may be about justice, but it may not be about justice. So we have to be aware of it when new terms are invented, because to me, that sounds like a bag of rotten goods coming down the pike, especially when it's put forward by the usual socialist characters who put these things forward, when there is no longer a good argument they must resort to sophistry. And I think it's important for us, because if we are going to have an improved quality of our life, where we are the determining ones about how to move our life forward, we have to be able to spot truisms as opposed to veiled lies in the form of sophistry. So be careful with adjectives when there is a creation of a new term, is what I would say. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.